It's the day before game day here on the North Shore Drive podcast. You know what that means. It's time for the Acrisure Fan Advantage. We bring you an opponent expert every single week. This week, we got Sarah Ellison of the Ravens Vault podcast. It's going to be a fun one here. We'll talk about all the things to look forward to. Steelers-Ravens Saturday afternoon. Let's get into it. You are now listening to the North Shore Drive podcast, a show on all things Pittsburgh sports from the writers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Hosted by Christopher Carter. Hello, welcome to the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm your host, Chris Carter, and this is the Acrisure Fan Advantage, where all season long, Acrisure is bringing you closer to the game than ever before. Every week, we make sure that your burning questions are answered by our insider, Brian Batko, who covers the Steelers for us at the Post-Gazette, and then we give you an in-depth conversation with an opponent expert each week. This week, it is Sarah Ellison of the Ravens Vault podcast. We had your partner, Bobby Baltimore, on earlier in the season, and that was a great conversation. Learned a lot with him. Sarah, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me, and it's always fun to talk Ravens Steelers.
Absolutely. Even though this is a game where technically it doesn't have any implication. And not even technically, it doesn't have any implication on the Ravens playoff hopes. They have locked up the number one seed. They've already said they're sitting Lamar Jackson. But I think that Steelers fans who are thinking, oh, they're going to take this lightly. The Ravens have that saying where you're not a Raven until you beat the Steelers. And there's quite a few guys in the roster that are like, I want to prove myself this week.
There's plenty of people, and it starts with Tyler Huntley. We know Lamar Jackson is not going to play, but Tyler Huntley, for the first time in his career, is going to be an unrestricted free agent. The Ravens picked him up as an undrafted rookie, and he's been behind Lamar for all of these years. And so you better believe he wants to put on tape before he goes out into free agency that, look, this isn't me in the preseason. Okay, this is against the Steelers when the playoffs are on the line for Pittsburgh. And I know there's like several different scenarios where the Ravens can clinch, and I know some of them are like circus kind of scenarios, but yeah, so it means a lot to the Steelers, and so this is a division rival. So Tyler Huntley has a lot to prove. I highly doubt that some of the starting wide receivers are going to play. Zay Flowers has been playing through stuff the last couple of weeks. Rookie receiver that's had a great year. There's no way they're going to play OBJ and put him out there and risk him to injury. On the flip side, I mean, some of these starters are going to have little to no, like Roquan Smith. I don't know that he'll be out there. Patrick Queen, they were both just voted in as the only pair of inside linebacker Pro Bowlers. But here's the thing, and this is where it can get kind of interesting, is that regardless to who has gone down this year, right? So Mark Andrews goes down. Isaiah Likely steps up. Marlon Humphrey went down in the middle of that game. Darby steps up. Kyle Hamilton went down. I mean, it just keeps happening. Top two running backs go down. And so this will be a test. Everybody keeps talking about the Ravens' depth. I personally think that the depth is there, but Lamar Jackson always seems to raise everybody's level of gameplay. So yeah, it's the pride. And you guys, I'm sure, feel the same way. Ravens fans always like to spoil the Steelers whenever they can. So no, it does not have playoff implications for Baltimore, but there is a lot on the line for the guys that are playing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a big game either way. Also, I think Steelers fans need to remember Tyler Huntley beat them last year. And I think that happened in Acrisure Stadium. Granted, he only threw for 88 yards and he wasn't the big story of the game, but still, he can manage a game, and he was only 8 of 12, but he avoided the big terrible plays. He only got sacked one time in that game, and that was a game that if the Steelers had won, they'd have been in the playoffs last year. So there's a lot of implications there. But I wanted to talk to you also about what the Ravens have strung together this season, because at one point, they were playing really strong. And they looked up, and I was like, man, they have a rough end of the schedule. You got the Jaguars, who at one point looked like they were tough, then the Niners, then the Dolphins, then the Steelers, who are going to be fighting for their lives. I was like, man, that's a rough slate. And they have smoked everyone that they have not just beaten, I mean smoked. And that deserves a lot of credit for what Harbaugh, Jackson, and the whole team has really put together.
I'm actually stunned by it. I mean, I'm an optimistic person. I've always felt like the Ravens were going to be good this year. I felt like when I looked at the roster and what Eric DeCosta put together, I said, okay, this is a playoff roster, even perhaps a Super Bowl contending roster. And so coming from somebody who already believed in the Ravens, I mean, this has been a playoff schedule since they've come out of their bye. With the Rams at the time, nobody was really talking about the Rams, but the Rams have really put on quite a run here recently. Then you had a division leader in Jacksonville Jaguars, who, by the way, last year is the one that kind of made the Ravens start to sputter. It was after that game. They do that. You've got Mike Florio out there saying that the 49ers were going to kick the bleep out of the Ravens and that it wasn't even going to be a contest. Then they go across the country on Christmas night, beat them, to your point. And then Miami, holy, you know what? Like, it just is like 56 points against another team that this isn't like college, Chris, as you know, where this is like a powerhouse, top 10 college.
This isn't Georgia versus the Rochester or something like that. That was two NFL teams.
This was Miami was playing for the number 1 seed. They were playing to steal the number 1 seed from the Ravens, and you win that 56-19. And what's crazy is the Ravens had some pretty big lopsided wins early in the year against Detroit and against the Seahawks. Again, no slouches. But even back then, there was always a feeling in Baltimore the offense still hasn't hit its stride because it's under a brand new coordinator, and we're totally giving the keys to Lamar Jackson. That has not happened in the past, totally empowering him. And it just felt like, okay, they still haven't hit it. And then Miami came week 17 and you're like, oh, okay, so this is what the offense is capable of, even with the past impressive wins in weeks 3 and 4 and 5.
Yeah, I think it's been very impressive to see what they've put together. You see the numbers that they're putting up, and you look at the Ravens overall right now. They are the number 1 defense. Like, everyone talks about, oh, Myles Garrett plays in the best defense. I'm like, I'm sorry, the defense that's allowing the fewest points, the fewest passing touchdowns, the fewest rushing touchdowns, and has forced the most turnovers. That's the Baltimore Ravens right now. They play the best defense, and they have the second highest scoring offense. That's how you build a team. You got everything going for you right now. I think one thing, and you mentioned Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. I saw Patrick Queen kind of dealing with a shoulder or something during the Dolphins game. Those are 2 key elements to this defense. Like you said, they're both Pro Bowl bound. They're going to be there. They both deserve it. They've played phenomenally this year. Their presence on the field has helped the Ravens a lot. And I think that's something where the Steelers have started to run the ball. If they're not on the field, what does that do to the Ravens defense?
Yeah, well, I mean, Roquan Smith is not only, a leader in terms of, tackles and his actual play and what he's able to produce, but he's also the leader of the defense. And so no matter what's going on, when you go into it, he really is. And for several years, it's been unfair. Anytime a middle linebacker comes in, everybody wants to compare him to Ray Lewis, and Ray would do this and Ray would do that. And it's like, no, don't go there. For this year, for the first time, people have been unafraid to compare him to Ray. In fact, we have Roquan on our show almost weekly.
Awesome.
And he's such a likable guy. He's such a good guy. So to your point, not only are you missing out on that production, but you're missing out on that leadership. And I talked about Tylan Wallace getting a shot. Well, that's where these other linebackers. So Trenton Simpson, he's somebody that the Ravens just drafted. In fact, for a minute, Patrick Queen seemed to be a little salty about it, but he got over it. And he's like, you know what? This was dumb of me. I shouldn't have reacted that way. So Trenton Simpson, who, if the Ravens can, I mean, they already they're spending $20 million a year now on Roquan. Can you do that for a second inside linebacker?
That's tough.
I know fans want it, but you're paying Lamar and all these other guys. So if he doesn't return it might be Trenton Simpson's turn to step up and be the guy next to Roquan. So now we get an early look to see what Trenton Simpson can do. Malik Harrison might be able to get in there. Delshon Phillips. So there's guys. They're not Roquan and they're not PQ, but they want to prove that they can stand next to him.
I want to point out other key matchups here on the other side of this first break. She's Sarah Ellison of the Ravens Vault podcast here talking Steelers-Ravens with us. We'll do that on the other side of this first break. I'm your host, Chris Carter. But first, we'll remind you this is the Acrisure Fan Advantage, where all season long we've brought you insider burning questions answered by Brian Batko on this show, and opponents experts every single week, the day before the game. Tune in every single week here to the North Shore Drive podcast, or go to acrisure.com/fan advantage, and you can ask your questions there. We're also brought to you by the best bar in all of Pittsburgh. That's Mike's Beer Bar, And when you go to Mike's Beer Bar, they have over 500 different available beers. 300 of those beers are local, and 80 of those local beers available on tap. And they're rotating new ones in and out all the time. They also have over 20 televisions. So if you want to catch all the playoff action on Sunday and make sure that you're monitoring all the games the Steelers need to go in their favor to make the playoffs, that's the best place to go do it. You can even reserve a table with the TV, tuned to the game that you want to see when you go to Mike's Beer Bar. You can also get their steak on a stone meal where they bring you your choice cut of steak, and every time that you cut a piece off, you press it into the stone and you choose how well done you want every single bite of your steak. Go to Mike's Beer Bar, the best bar in all of Pittsburgh. When you get there, tell them Chris sent you. We're back here on the North Shore Drive podcast. It's the Acrisure Fan Advantage here from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter here with Sarah Ellison of the Ravens Vault podcast. Sarah, let's talk about a few things here. Now, one of the key elements of the Steelers is their pass rush, of course, and T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig, who's continued to emerge this year, Cam Hayward, those guys. They're going to be facing a Ravens offensive line that has been pretty strong this year. And the question I have to you is the full Ravens offensive line to be expected for this game? Because that's another group where they have a lot of veterans on it.
Definitely not. So already, and it's super unique, Chris, and I know you know this, the Ravens for the past 3 or 4 games, they've actually been rotating both their tackle spots.
Mm-hmm.
That, we all know that offensive line, it's all about continuity and getting used to each other. So that's why it's so rare. But I think Ronnie Stanley, left tackle, former Pro Bowl, All-Pro, has just been dealing with stuff all year, and he's been fighting, but he's been dealing with stuff. And then so is Morgan Moses, and Morgan Moses is not a spring chicken anymore. He's
right.
In
He's up
the
there.
Latter years, the latter years of his career, and so they've just been banged up. And so if you're rotating them during when the seeding and the playoffs are on the line, I just imagine they're going to give both tackles the entire day off, the entire afternoon off. And then Kevin Zeitler, who's been the stalwart right guard, he's actually missed last game with an injury, so I don't imagine he'll be in there. Probably Ben Cleveland. And so I'm actually interested myself. In fact, we just did a Ravens Steelers preview on my show with Brooke Pryor of ESPN. She was fantastic.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah. She was great. She's like an encyclopedia. These print journalists, there's just have everything filed away up there. So anyway, I said in that preview that I'm actually interested in seeing how this offensive line is gonna play and who's gonna be out there, because I still don't know. I just imagine that those older guys who've bbeen banged up won't be there.
Yeah, that's a big question. Also, full disclosure, we were recording this noon on Thursday, so we're not seeing all the practice reports. There will be a Thursday practice report where we get to see guys. The Steelers are getting back guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick and Landon Roberts. They practiced on Wednesday. We'll see how they continue to throughout the week. But I wanted to ask you too, Sarah, about one guy that some Steelers fans really kind of wanted when he came out in the draft, and that was Tyler Linderbaum at center. He has played at a very high level. I think undoubtedly one of the best centers in football, and he's another key element to this game because he keeps everyone. What has he done so well to keep everyone in line, but also play so well in the middle of that offense?
He just puts on his hat and he comes to work, grabs his lunch bell, and he comes to work. He's very quiet. He's all about his business. It's that's it. He just comes to work. And it was interesting because there were some questions about, his size and all of that, but he has that wrestling background. He knows how to use leverage. He just, from day one, has just fit right in with Lamar Jackson, being everything that he needs to be. In fact, when Kevin Zeitler, the veteran guard on the right side, they put in Ben Cleveland, and let me tell you, they had Linderbaum sliding over. And so he's already gotten to that point in his second year where he can be the one who doesn't just do his job, but helps out with other people's job. And he's never had to on the right side because Kevin Zeitler's always been there. And it's just thinking back to that. I mean, I can see why people want it, but with the Pro Bowl announcements coming out just Wednesday night, Eric DaCosta had 2 first-round draft picks because of the trade for Hollywood Brown out to Arizona. And his 2 first-round draft picks, Hamilton and Tyler Linderbaum, both made the Pro Bowl in their second year. So people are definitely praising Eric DeCosta this morning.
They should be. Kyle Hamilton's also been phenomenal at safety. I loved him coming out. I remember when seeing him fall to the Ravens, I was like, how'd the NFL let that happen? Like, that guy was supposed to be like a top 8 pick, and then here he is. What, he fall like 14 or something when the Ravens come?
I love it when the NFL does it. They did the same thing with Lamar Jackson. Let him fall to 32.
Listen.
Like, and the Steelers do the same thing. Like, you just keep winning. You don't go play for a draft pick, and you let the NFL mess up and let stars fall to you.
TJ Watt was the 30th overall pick. Like,
unreal, insane.
It's stuff. It's crazy. Lamar Jackson, 32nd overall. TJ Watt, 30th overall. But let's talk real quick, big picture, real quick, before we get back to focusing in on this game. If the Steelers, let's say the Steelers win this game, and then one of two things need to happen. They either need the Dolphins to beat the Bills or the Titans to beat the Jaguars. If they win this game and they get that to happen, they're in the playoffs. That would make 3 AFC North teams in the playoffs, and I would be the most scared of all 3 of them because the Ravens are playing the best football in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
Browns are playing, like, why would you want to play that team right now? They have Joe Flacco and they're beating people, and who knows what that's even going to look like. The Steelers with Mason Rudolph are averaging 30 points a game all of a sudden. If I'm the Dolphins, the Bills, whoever wins the AFC South, like one of those, the Chiefs, I'd be looking around like, man, that division is annoying this year. And I think it speaks to the level of competition that these 4 teams specifically have given each other all year.
Chris, think about this. The 49ers, I believe, have 4 losses.
3 of them are
3 of them to the AFC North.
Crazy.
Chris, this is the one thing, and this is why, as much as we all hate each other, right, as division rivals, like, you better believe in Baltimore, we have respect. Even though we hate y'all, we have respect for the Browns. We have respect for the Steelers. We're a little annoyed with the Bengals, to be honest. But they get a little taste of success, and they're a little bit, the fans anyway, big-headed. So, but like, I was thinking the other day, like, who would I least want to see in the postseason, as well as the Ravens are playing? And it would be the AFC North teams.
Yeah.
Because it's different in the AFC North, Chris. You know this. This is the black and blue division. This is the physical division. And we just saw this with Miami. Speed kills, right?
Yep.
But if you start punching, punching speed, it slows you down. It's the Mike Tyson quote, like, you have a plan until you get punched in the mouth. AFC North knows how to give punches, and they know how to take punches. So I would prefer, plus we just all know each other so well. We know our strengths. We know our weaknesses. We play each other twice a year. So I'd prefer to not have that. But also, just to Cleveland, you're welcome that we're lending you our Super Bowl champion quarterback right now. We know what he can do, and we need that. Like, we love Joe, but this all needs to end right now. His ride has got to end.
I feel you entirely. But I was going to bring that up too, that if I'm the Ravens, I want to play the Dolphins again, or the Chiefs, or the Bills, or whoever wins the AFC South, because the Browns, they give you a fight. I believe they split. In fact, you look at the Ravens schedule. They're 13-3, 2 of the 3 losses, Browns, Steelers. Like that's that right there. The Steelers are 4-1 in the division right now. It's crazy enough. The Bengals went. If they lose Sunday, they are winless on the year in the division. I don't think anyone had that happening. Granted, we also didn't see Joe Burrow going out for the year, but still, I think it speaks to, like you said, the competition, the respect that they have in the division. Mike Tomlin, when asked what has led to the success in the division, and he said it's chess, not checkers. We know each other so well, and so it allows for a layered strategy where you're able to go up against each other. Whereas, like, the Steelers played Seattle last week, and it's a matchup that you only play maybe once every 4 years. So that's a little bit different as far as how you know each other. But now you know this team's tendencies, not just their tendencies against you, and vice versa happens because the Ravens know the Steelers. And crazy enough, and you brought up the AFC North teams, the Steelers have won 6 of the last 7 times against the Ravens. I didn't realize that until about a month ago, and I was like, wait, what? And I just think these teams go back and forth every year, and the Ravens will pay the Steelers back very soon. I think that is like a pendulum that just swings back and forth. But if I'm the Ravens in the playoffs, I'd rather, if I'm the 1 seed and I get a game off, I'm hoping that the Jaguars or the Colts or the Chiefs are the team coming to town, not the Steelers or the Browns, because those games don't matter how good or bad either team is, they're always going down to the wire.
Always going down to the wire. And by the way, I had to look back up. Now, part of the reason the Steelers have won so many recently is for some reason,
Lamar's.
whether it's because of COVID or injuries or
Yep.
like this week where he's just not going to play. Lamar hasn't played in a few of those games.
Yep.
That being said, though, I don't want to take anything away from the Steelers because it is one of the few teams. It doesn't matter how well Lamar Jackson is playing. It's like Mike Tomlin and the Steelers just they have figured out ways to slow him down. And so now part of it, the last time we just played, it was really annoying for Ravens fans because they're like, okay, Lamar's going to redeem himself.
Touchdowns.
And then all those drops, including in the end zone. It's like, can y'all come? Can you please step up for your guy here against this division rival or whatever? So now it won't even matter because he won't play. But yeah, it is crazy how Steelers have been on a run.
It's insane. I want to talk more about this matchup specifically. We'll do that on the other side of this next break here on the North Shore Drive podcast as the Acrisure Fan Advantage with Chris Carter and Sarah Ellison of the Ravens Vault podcast. But first, I want to remind you, we're also brought to you by Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci. They are mesothelioma and asbestos lawyers with over 85 years of experience. Call them now for a free consultation. That's Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci. We're also brought to you by Game Time. The website is gametime.co, but the app is Game Time. You can download right to your phone to get all your favorite tickets to your favorite events without it being a stressful process. Game Time gets you the tickets that you want to see for sporting events, music concerts, comedy events, theater events, anything near you. Game Time gets you the tickets fast and easy way. And it also gets you the best prices. And when I'm talking about the best prices, I'm talking about if you're a person that, like me, I often wait till close up to a big concert that I want to do on the day of. And I'll say, I want to see what the best prices I can get. But sometimes I go to the ticket booth or I go to the other websites and I'm like, I'm not sure about these prices. And I'll find a scalper on the street and they're like, I can get you these tickets. But I'm like, I'm not sure if that's a good ticket at all. Game Time is the best of both worlds. Why? Because it shows you all the views from all the seats that you can buy, and it shows you all the best prices that you can have. And Game Time's so confident that they're getting you the best prices that they promise you if you find tickets in the same section and row for less somewhere else to a concert you get off of Game Time, they will give you 110% of the difference in credit on the Game Time app. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PITTPIT for $20 off your first purchase, or go to their website, gametime.co. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code PITTPIT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're back here on the North Shore Drive podcast. It's the Acrisure Fan Advantage. Chris Carter, Sarah Ellison from the Ravens Vault podcast. Sarah, if you look at this game, and like you said, the Ravens aren't sleeping this game. They want to win because if they win, it hurts the Steelers' play. It doesn't knock them out of the playoffs, but it severely hurts their chances. They would then need both the Jaguars to lose to the Titans and the Broncos to beat the Raiders, I believe, are the two things that they would need if they lost this game. So that would be a situation. If there is a thing that the Ravens need to key on in this game, just estimating who's going to play, what is the biggest factor the Ravens need to key in on?
The Ravens defense?
Well, no, either side.
Either side. Okay, I thought you said defense. Yeah, I mean, I feel like they need to find a way to get the run game going, and to just take some pressure off of Tyler Huntley. So I feel like that needs to get moving. Now, on the defensive side, here's what's interesting. So where I think a huge key would be, and it's always turnovers, right? Keys are always turnovers. But to be more specific on that, the Ravens have already tested their secondary strength quite a bit this year. And then in the middle of that Miami game with Tyreek Hill right there. Now, they didn't have Waddle, but Marlon went down and then Hamilton was already out. And so they were down big time in their DBs. And then Ronald Darby and Rock Ya-Sin came in and had a great game. So to me, these guys have been playing at a starter level. So even though the backups, I think that they can. So to me, and I know Mason is off, I mean, just playing super confidently. He's, I think, the key behind, the recent surge for the Steelers. But to me, if you're going to have a chance, you with all these backups, you've got to be able to generate turnovers. You've got to. And so I'm going to be looking at those corners and see what they can do, see if they can get any sort of pressure on there or on Mason. So to me, that's, again, turnovers are always the key, but to me, it's even bigger this time when you're down, your backups.
Yeah, I agree. It is huge. That's how you overcome a lot of stuff. In fact, you go back to the game the Ravens won last year. Turnovers won that game. They got 3 interceptions on Mitch Trubisky, and that flipped the game back in. Then the Steelers still had a chance to win, but then I think it was a field goal blocked by Calais Campbell that ended the Steelers' chances there. But those type of plays can dig you out of tough situations. Heck, if it wasn't for the turnover at the goal line, the Ravens might have beaten the Bengals in the playoff last year with Tyler Huntley, by the way. So like.
Yeah.
John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin are both great coaches. They know what they're doing. They know how to get the best out of their guys, and their locker rooms believe in them. That is something that's going to be a factor in this game. That's why I'm telling Steelers fans, do not sleep this game right now. One key factor that I think could play into this is if Minkah Fitzpatrick or Landon Roberts, the guys that they did practice Wednesday, we'll see if they practice throughout the rest of the week. If they can't return, or if their return it brings in some slower communication as they try to get the defense back together. The key that some teams keyed it on for about a month was attacking down the middle of the Steelers defense. For most of the year, the Steelers going up until about like week 11 or so, or week 12 or so, they had allowed 1 touchdown to tight ends. Then once Minkah Fitzpatrick and all their linebackers were out, and I mean also their backup safeties, they gave up 5 touchdowns to tight ends. So that was an issue. I saw Isaiah Likely was dealing with maybe like a nagging injury. What is his status? Because he has stepped up so well for Mark Andrews and also got me a lot of money in fantasy football this year.
Good for you. Congrats on that. Yes, that's a good question. I could see him playing a little bit. I think so. The year that the Ravens drafted Isaiah Likely, they also drafted Charlie Kolar. And Kolar's in fact, I think if I remember correctly, I think Kolar was actually drafted first, which has happened a few times where like the tight end that was drafted second actually ends up kind of being the star. Like Mark Andrews was drafted in the 3rd round, and Hayden Hurst was the first that year. And it's happened. I could bring up several times that it's happened. So I think this will be the Charlie Kolar game. And one of the reasons why Likely was able to leapfrog him is because Kolar suffered, he had to get a small surgery in his rookie training camp, and then Likely just took off. And so Charlie just hasn't been able to like really have the opportunity. But since Mark Andrews went down, he's kind of gone into this number 2 role, and like in little spots here and there, it's like, oh, okay, Charlie, that's why you were drafted before Likely. So to me, Likely could play a little bit, but my guess is that this is going to be Charlie's game to have a chance to shine.
I think that's gonna be a major part of this here and how do the Steelers try to play that. They've moved Patrick Peterson to safety. He's become a good safety for them. Like he's rarely targeted because he's so often in position in the last like 3 games that he's played safety, and I think that's going to be a big key there. So with that being said, we talked about turnovers. We talked about the Ravens attacking the middle part of the field. Let's get into the final thing here. Predictions. Sarah, what is your prediction for how this game plays out? Maybe the turning point of this game and a final score look here.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, it's been a magical season to say the least for Baltimore. I mean, even the games that they've lost, they held the lead for most of the time. It just seems like they can do no wrong, right? So it wouldn't shock me if somehow, because depth is like the name of the game this year, that somehow the Ravens pulled something out. But I think it would be ridiculous of me to expect that when the Steelers have everything to play for. They're the starters, all of that. It could end up being close because, again, we just know each other. And so part of it is just putting the players in the right place. So I could see it being close, but I still see the Steelers coming out with a win. Something like, 24-21, somewhere around there.
I'm right in that range. I said 23-16 was mine because I can see a lot of Justin Tucker field goals and things there. And the Steelers just kind of pull ahead in the 4th quarter. And then you just see the Ravens being like, look, we ain't trying to kill ourselves right now. We got a week off, and then we get to play whoever we want at this stadium in just a couple of weeks. We know what's going on there. But like you said, both teams are going to come in with a plan to win, and it's going to be a great fight there. She's Sarah Ellison. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
First of all, Chris, I just got to say, I'm told that I talk fast. I don't think I keep up with you, but I'm good because I always listen to like my podcasts on 2 times speed. With you, I wouldn't even need to do 2 times. It's very impressive listening to you read ads. It's been great. But you can find me. The vault is the name of the podcast. We cover everything Ravens, and I'm on Twitter. My handle's right there at SG Ellison. Appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you joining us. I have been called the Twista of podcasts for my ad reads because I can just go. Thanks so much, Sarah. Thanks so much, you all, for joining us here on the Acrisure Fan Advantage, the North Shore Drive podcast. Remember, our entire team, our Brian Batko, Jerry Dulac, Ray Fittipaldo, they will be there on hand in M&T Bank Stadium, and they'll be covering Steelers Ravens. We'll have post-game reactions here on this very channel, and then the next day, Ray Fittipaldo and I will be breaking things down as far as what happened for the Steelers' playoff hopes and what happened to see if they are in the playoffs. Stay tuned here from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the North Shore Drive podcast. We'll see you again very soon. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all the sports coverage from the Post-Gazette that we have to offer, visit post-gazette.com.